Good morning, classmates, EDUT 522 classmates and Professor Tillier. This is my presentation on my future predictions for education. Since the beginning of class week 1, my predictions were about blended learnings becoming more prevalent, and flipped classrooms also becoming more prevalent. That hasn't changed. The only thing that has changed is my view on not just only the effects of at a micro level in the classroom, but the effects at the macro level, how it's going to change the structure of schooling. And my main prediction is that alternative schooling paradigms will become more mainstream as the technological innovations, such as the technology used to make this video, or to you, my classmates and professor, who are geographic distances way just very far away from me, and we're able to interact and talk about content and learn content. These kinds of technologies are going to provide the need for alternative school paradigms, which are becoming more and more in need. Here's my main reasons. The first reason is that there's a difference in philosophies of education. What kind of person are we attempting to create? Well, if you ask 20 different people, you'll get 20 different answers as to what kind of person we're attempting to create in public school. When you teach Billy, what kind of person are we trying to create when we teach Billy? If you ask different teachers, you get different answers, and parents. For instance, 2 + 2 = 4 is a fact, but that fact is not in isolation from a philosophy. 2 + 2 = 4 is why is it 2 + 2 = 4? Well, that depends on your philosophy of education, your worldview. We all know that in education, facts are not taught in isolation. They're always embedded within a worldview. I believe 2 + 2 = 4 because God gave us a rational mind to rationally investigate the world, and He's given us symbolic logic in the form of mathematics as a means to that end. That's from a Christian worldview. 2 + 2 = 4. From an atheistic worldview, maybe something that you can teach Billy. The reason why it's 4 is because we've evolved from the primordial slime, and we've understood. We now know that 2 + 2 = 4, and that gives us survival advantage in the battle for survival. And so my point here is that there's always a difference of philosophy in education, and that creates differences in how we should educate our children, especially when it comes to our own. And school has become a battleground for various philosophies and ideologies. For instance, recently, school safety issues with the mass shootings. How should we best keep our children safe in schools? There's a whole debate between evolution and intelligent design. Should we teach as evolution as fact or as a theory? It's only a theory. Should we teach intelligent design? Because there's plenty of evidence, and scientists are arguing that intelligent design should be taught. So it's a huge battleground. There's issues of some schools are not rigorous enough for my child. Some schools are too rigorous. Some schools are teaching moral agendas that don't comport with my worldview and the way I want to teach my kid. For instance, last month in Orange County, the Orange County Board of Education said that they wouldn't allow parents to remove their children from classes that taught and discussed gender identity issues, gender expression, or sexual orientation. It became a hot legal battle. In Illinois, this past year, the Senate passed a bill requiring public schools to teach the roles and contributions of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people in the history of this country and in the state. I'm not here to argue for or against it. I'm just saying is that because there's a difference in ideology and philosophy, that creates a market need for alternative forms of schooling for frustrated parents and parents who are fed up. So that's the first reason, is a difference in philosophy. I think the second reason is failing schools in the United States. Not all schools, but there's certain failing schools, especially those in their inner city, that experience deficits in attendance, behavioral issues, rigor. Many parents who are in the inner city, who are from lower socioeconomic status levels, are imprisoned by their zip code, and they're seeking alternative forms, but they don't have money for private schools and other charter schools, and they're desirous of alternative forms. The need is so great that even in Charlotte, some good stories are from in Charlotte, North Carolina, Brookstone schools, and in Washington D.C., the Cornerstone schools. They've created, these are startup elementary schools that are devoted to higher academic rigor in their curriculum and teaching from a Judeo-Christian worldview, Judeo-Christian morality to their students, and they're experiencing some awesome results in terms of test scores and graduation rates and just the overall climate and morale of the school in contradistinction to the public school counterparts that their communities in their own communities. And these startup schools reflect the racial diversity of the local community that they're situated in. So it's a pretty neat story. I think the third reason for why I think the technological innovation is going to create an alternative form of schooling to be more mainstream is because it's evidenced by the homeschool movement that's been growing since the 1980s. Every year it's growing. According to statistics by the National Home Education Research Institute, data from 16 states and from all major regions of the U.S. showed that homeschooling grew by an average of 25%. And currently, there's studies estimate that currently 2.3 million students are homeschooled in our country. And this is just homeschooling. And when I say alternative forms of schooling, I'm not just talking about homeschooling. I'm talking about charter schools. I'm talking about co-ops, affordable Christian schools, online courses, blended forms of schooling where a student will attend brick and mortar school and go to class physically and then do some online courses to supplement that. The homeschool movement is a huge movement going on right now. Some scholars, such as Dr. Catherine Becker and Karen Efford, say that public schools can learn from the individualized instruction that homeschool provides for their children, and can learn from the student-led and student-directed and student-driven instruction that homeschool provides for their students. In other words, there's things to be learned from the homeschool movement. It's a huge movement. It comports with sometimes even special needs students who cannot survive in a public school setting for various reasons. The whole the socialization process, concern about homeschooling have evolved into co-ops that allow families to be involved with their children in sports and arts, and special subjects that like advanced mathematics and science are taught through co-ops and teachers online. There's all kinds of variations of the way the format is run with homeschoolers, and it's just an evidence of the growing need and the growing market that technology can provide for them. So to summarize, my prediction is that alternative forms of schooling will become more mainstream as technology meets the need of meets these needs of parents who are frustrated or who want a different model for their child's education. And the three main reasons are the different in philosophies of education. You cannot separate education from undergirding worldview and philosophical issues. 2, there's failing schools. 3, the homeschool movement, the burgeoning homeschool movement, and the need for different schooling. My prediction is that alternative schools are going to be more and more prevalent and more mainstream. Thank you, and here's my some of my references. Go ahead and pause the video and you can see some of my references that I've used here. Thank you. God bless you guys, and talk to you soon.